Netflix has been hit with 4 new felony indictments over the film Cuties. These indictments are specifically accusing Netflix of basically production and distribution of adult films featuring children, is one mild way to put it. You may remember the film Cuties. It generated a whole lot of negative attention because it's a film about prepubescent girls engaging in adult activities and being groomed. The interesting thing is the left defends this film outright. And I really do think this is the perfect example of there being 2 completely different realities. One, in which you have people who are just shrieking banshees who demand you adhere to the cult, and the other who have, morals and principles. Yeah, I know maybe it's a bit reductionist to frame it that way. One side is evil and the other side is good. But I think when you actually look at the perspective of the left and how they're defending the film Cuties, I don't think it's unfair to say, I think it's fine to point out the moral world that you and I live in has no bridge, no overlap with the moral world that the cult lives in. The reason I say that is I can understand the nuance of a film, and I can understand, let's just say, surreptitious behaviors and deceptive practices. The left simply says, if the movie supports our worldview, we defend it. In this film, it depicts several prepubescent girls. There's an extended scene in which they engage in overtly adult dances and behaviors, and it's kind of bad. I mean, it is literally bad. There's also a scene where the little girl takes pictures of herself in compromising ways. None of this stuff should have been included in the film. The left's general defense of this, when I say the left, I mean the culture war left, is that, but the film is seeking to criticize hypersexualization in modern culture. Yeah, don't play games with me, dude. You don't need to show little girls doing these things to make a critique about these things. You can show the little girls seeing things on TV, and the actresses don't need to be included. So let me put it this way. The film Cuties literally has little girls doing these dances. You want to criticize it, you could be like, all right, little girl actresses walk on stage, scene cut, girls leave stage. Now you show the disgusted audience. Never are these little girls forced to act out or do these things. The film, you see, the problem is, in this worldview, we are not just looking at a movie as some alternate reality. We're looking at it as there are literally little girls who are hired, brought onto stage, and taught to dance like this. The left, again, they say, but it was to critique it. I don't care. So now Netflix is hit with 4 indictments. Good. I'd love to see this move forward. And I'll tell you, my friends, cancel culture. It's a real thing. Why? Because everybody has their threshold. And this is a great example. The left says, if you say a naughty word that goes against our power, you should be canceled. If your father says a naughty word, you should be canceled. It actually happened to that race car driver. In our world, we say, if you hire 4 prepubescent girls and teach them to do graphic adult dancing and then put that movie out for people to watch, you should be canceled. I mean, to a certain degree, criminally charged. Here's the story from Hollywood Reporter. Now, the story is from last week, but I do have an update showing you the left and their defense. Hollywood Reporter says, Netflix takes on Texas. Attorneys analyze the, quote, outlandish fight over Cuties. A district attorney in Tyler County, Texas, claims Netflix's Cuties amounts to adult films featuring children. His labyrinth prosecution will force a federal court to grapple with whether it should intervene to stop the criminal case. No, actually, it isn't. Apparently, the federal courts have already said, what do you want us to do? This is a state prosecution. They're filing criminal charges against you. I mean, this is kind of crazy. Think about it this way. Let's say that you are accused of a crime. You've not yet been convicted of said crime. So you go to the feds and say, shut it down. The feds' response, this is a state authority issue. The feds don't get involved in this. Interesting, right? Netflix is asking a Texas federal judge to get Spider off its back. Ah, ha, 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 ha. The streamer says Tyler County District Attorney Lucas Babin, a former actor best known for his role as Spider in School of Rock, is abusing his power and the court needs to intervene. I actually think he's not. And I actually think he's taking appropriate action. But we'll get into that. I'll explain. The fight stems from Netflix's 2020 release of the French film Cuties, a coming-of-age story about an 11-year-old Senegalese immigrant who joins a dance group. Oh, is that what the movie is about? Coming of age. I remember such great coming-of-age films like American Pie, where the actors were all over 18 or a little bit older. I remember, how about this? Was it Superbad? The guy, Christopher Mintz-Plasse, who played McLovin, I think he was 16 at the time. And they did a scene where he was, hooking up with a woman. His parents had, my understanding is this, his parents had to be there and they all agreed to it. But also the important thing is 16-year-olds, while they're minors, and I'm kind of like, it's kind of cringe. I get the point of the movie. Adult supervision, and he's still post-pubescent. Is that the right word? Still not a fan, though. I'm kind of like, 16-year-olds, they're going out and doing stuff. The issue here is these are 11-year-old girls engaging in these activities they don't need them to engage in for the sake of the film. You want to make an argument the film's going to critique it, you don't need to actually bring 11-year-old girls on stage, 11-year-old girls on stage to do lewd dancing for 3 minutes. That's the weird thing about this. So no, let's say it's not coming of age. 11-year-olds are not coming of age. You see what else they're doing here? 11, coming of age. No, coming of age is 18. Yes, of age. Someone who is of age, that means 18. Not 11, not 12, not 13. You see what they're doing? So this movie is not a coming of age story. It's a movie about old men who groom little girls into doing this. I'm not even exaggerating. There's like a scene where some guy is like lustfully looking at a child. It's messed up. The movie, intended to criticize the hypersexualization of young girls, garnered widespread acclaim at Sundance, but became controversial for showing sexualized dance moves. Yes, for like 3 minutes, having little girls actually do this. They could have shown a different dance troupe. They could have shown adult women. 18, that's fine. 20. And that could have had the audience being like, oh, wow, look what they're doing. Then it's like, and now the little girls. And the little girls go on stage and the audience looks shocked. And then it like scene transitions. The little girls are off stage. You have these little girls actually trained by these. Wow, man. It's just so gross. Anyway, here's the news. The controversy culminated in Babin charging Netflix for promoting child erotica. Content that depicts children in a lewd manner, which it did. However, it's interesting. What has happened in the year and a half that followed led to Netflix taking the rare step of seeking a federal court's intervention to stop the prosecution. The streamer argues Babin is knowingly pursuing a losing case to harass it. I don't agree. It's insane prosecutorial overreach. It literally isn't. I mean, the law exists. Check it out. Netflix in October 2020 was originally charged for violating a state law that criminalizes lewd material that depicts lewd exhibition of children, which the Texas legislature dubbed child erotica. The state enacted the statute in 2017 to cover content that falls outside of adult content with children in it. The indictment became no longer viable after a Texas appeals court in October 2021 found the statute unconstitutional under the First Amendment in an unrelated case, which I find kind of gross and weird, but I want to make sure we're very careful around First Amendment issues. I'm just kind of questioning, can they get this law better because lewd depiction of kids? I guess the issue is what constitutes lewd is difficult. If you have someone who's producing family photos and they have like little girls in bathing suits, there's some creepos who might want to see that, but is a family allowed to take photos of their kids wearing bathing suits? And there's a challenge, I suppose. But I think there's that line of, when you see it. When you have little girls wearing like skin-tight unitards doing lewd dancing, I think that's obviously different from someone taking a photo of their family, but it was the statute was unconstitutional. The Texas First District Court of Appeals concluded the law is too broad. A teenager who takes a lewd photo of themselves, for example, could hypothetically be found in violation of the statute. So could anyone who even watched Cuties. Okay, fair point. The court pointed to Babin's indictment against Netflix as one of the bases for its holding. It's currently written that the statute could apply not only to Netflix, but to those persons who viewed the offending visual material, reads the court order. Let me slow down there a minute. It could apply to Netflix? Why shouldn't it? I mean, no, think about it. Is this the court saying that large multi-billion-dollar corporations are exempt from the law if they want to produce adult content featuring children? That's insane. The law should absolutely apply to massive multinational billion-dollar corporations when they break it. After Babin refused to voluntarily dismiss the indictment, Netflix in November pursued a constitutional challenge, a filing in criminal cases that challenged the lawfulness of certain charges. Netflix emphasized in its petition that Babin never had probable cause to seek the indictment in the first place and had no hope of prevailing in the case, even setting aside the statute's First Amendment issues. The argument lies in the obscenity standard created by the U.S. Supreme Court in Miller v. California, as well as the statute itself. The High Court found in that case that the First Amendment safeguards obscene material as long as it has serious literary, artistic, political, or scientific value. A bold move, baby. Bring it on. I'll tell you why I think Babin is correct. Laws need to be clarified in judicial hearings. These things need to be adjudicated so we can have clarification. A legislator can say, I hereby propose this law. And we say, that seems a little too vague. Instead of getting rid of it, you say, Judge, tell me the scope of this law. Someone gets criminally charged. They can file a suit. The judge will then say, In this instance, we have a very serious question about what Netflix is trying to pull off. Can you make erotica featuring children so long as you include some kind of critique in it? I understand fair use laws have really broad application because the idea is of critique. But if you're going to apply that standard here, we are in for a disgusting, morally abhorrent future of child exploitation, and not a fan. Think about it. Cuties, it crossed the line. You want to make this film? I have no problem. You don't need to actually have the little girls do these things. Netflix says we're allowed to distribute this at least because we've included critique. Serious literary, artistic, political, or scientific value. Amazing. So the First Amendment safeguards obscene material. This is obscene material featuring kids. And therein lies the big problem. How would this argument not apply to really graphic images? I mean, seriously, how does the court determine when you have these little girls dancing, it is lewd? How do they determine that will allow this lewd behavior of children, that sexualized and everything, because of their critique? Why doesn't the court draw the line there? That's my question. If you're going to make an arbitrary line, draw it here and say no. Amy Sanders, an attorney and media law professor at the University of Texas in Austin, says it's absurd to question the artistic value of Cuties when it's been lauded for its timely exploration of how children are impacted by a highly sexualized and media-driven culture. And you don't need to have the little girls actually do these things to have that critique. The idea that there is no First Amendment protection for this kind of theatrical depiction of a major social issue is ridiculous. The question is, are the little girls in the film being abused? I would say yes. You're you see, this is so insane. We're criticizing it. You're literally engaging in it. You, Netflix, by distributing this, you, the filmmakers, you actually took little girls and trained them to do this. You hypersexualized them. You can't be like, I'm criticizing drugs by selling drugs. It's insane. All right, here we go. Just days before the hearing, Babin on Thursday blindsided Netflix with 4 new indictments because the hearing is going to be this month. According to the streamer's complaint, Babin used the extra 4 months to covertly convene a grand jury and charge Netflix, this time with outright, graphic adult film child laws, we'll put it that way. But now you've got a grand jury. Babin's real purpose of seeking the delay to Netflix's habeas petition, and despite Texas Code of Criminal Procedure, blah, 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 was a purposeful effort to deprive Netflix of its day in court. No, if he convened a grand jury and the grand jury returned 4 indictments, well, then I think you've got to answer for them. Grand juries are not adversarial. This means he went before a group of people and said, take a look at all this stuff. Do you think it violates these laws? And the people said yes. Cynthia Alkin, professor at criminal law at Texas A&M University School of Law, believes the delay is problematic and could be used against Babin in determining whether he brought his second indictment in bad faith, a factor that could force a federal court's hand in intervening. My understanding is that right now the federal court said we can't intervene in over states' authority or whatever. They go on to just say blah blah blah. In a hearing Friday, both sides agreed to pause the criminal case in state court and set a hearing for June 14th for the federal court to consider issuing a permanent injunction against Babin's office, which did not respond to requests for comment. Levin explains that Babin's insistence on prosecuting Netflix may be the rare case where a federal court is forced to intervene. There's no way to prosecute this case that's appropriate. They can try as many times as they want to keep shifting legal theories, but at the core, it's a rotten case and shouldn't be brought. Why not? Why not? Serious question. Why not? If you're accused of a crime and a grand jury returns an indictment, you go to court. If Netflix is so sure they're innocent of any wrongdoing, then you go to court, you present the evidence before a jury, and you're acquitted. Netflix is a multi-billion-dollar corporation. They can afford to defend themselves. Why not even have the case? I think it's strange. I think it's very strange that you can have regular people forced to go to court over a cop just accusing them of jaywalking. Oh, it's a ticket, but I got to go to court for this now? Yeah, or you can just pay it. You go to court and the cop says, trust me, guys, he did it. And you say, I didn't. And then often they just believe it. The people will be like, I believe the cop. Here, you have a grand jury, you have prosecution, and you have Netflix claiming they did nothing wrong. Okay. What Netflix, why are you scared of presenting a Texas jury with this film and then asking them the question, did I do anything wrong? Why are you trying to stop the case from even happening? I think it's because Netflix knows they're guilty. I believe it's because there's going to be individuals at Netflix who are going to be paying a very hefty price for a very serious, disgusting criminal activity. Here's the issue you got to understand. States have authority. Netflix wants to distribute in all jurisdictions. They have to answer to those jurisdictions when they break the law. That's it. I don't live in Texas. But in the United States, for the most part, we have very similar laws across the board. There may be many jurisdictions that don't want to bring criminal complaints against Netflix. One did. You got to answer for it. I mean, that's interesting. Now, there's questions about whether or not Netflix chooses to distribute in Texas, whether they filed proper laws and everything to do so. And I would imagine they probably did. But it is complicated. And I got to be honest. We're in an era where, who will be held accountable for this? Will it be an executive at Netflix? Will it be the person who approved this? It's tough. Now there's a question that needs to be asked. I proposed this question, when I was talking about this the other day with friends. If someone who worked for timcast.com published something abhorrent on timcast.com, should I, Tim Pool, be personally held responsible? No. The company, yes. And the individual posted it if it was criminal, yes. But not people who weren't aware of it. Aha, but wait. What if the executives then come out and defend the publication of it? Now it seems everyone's involved. It's tough, but I think this shows that we are in two entirely different worlds with the left. Take a look at the Mary Sue. Netflix is battling a Texas DA's ridiculous attempt to prosecute them over Cuties. I don't think the Texas DA is asking the question about the critique. I believe he agrees with the critique. I believe his question is over whether or not you should have had a bunch of little girls trained to do sexual actions, sexualized activities and dancing for the sake of this film and include it in your film. I think then what's going to end up happening is I think a strong possibility. Well, strong possibility multi-billion-dollar corporations don't get held accountable. But I believe there's a strong possibility that they go to court. The Texas DA says, to the judge, Your Honor, we agree with their critique over the hypersexualization of little girls. We have not brought criminal charges over their critique. We've brought it over them taking 4 little girls, having them be trained to perform lewd adult behaviors, and then filming it and publishing it and charging money for it. Now, that's totally different. Judge, would you agree this critique could have been made properly without having little girls engage in this behavior? I think the judge would agree. It's Texas after all, but we'll see. Now, as much as the Mary Sue is playing that argument I've stated several times, they're going to mention conservative circles have rallied behind criticism of the movie sexualizing and exploiting children. Babin's father, Congressman Brian Babin, U.S. Senator Ted Cruz, and a group of more than 30 House Republicans have called on the DOJ to prosecute Netflix. This and other calls by conservatives to investigate the making of the movie prompted Netflix to apologize for inappropriately sexualizing actresses and marketing materials. They did that. I think this prosecutor has a case, and I think Netflix is going to lose. On the merits, they may win on the politics. We'll see. But the reason I think so is that Netflix actually apologized for the marketing materials, which just showed a clip from their sexualized dancing. That's in the movie. If They know they did something wrong and it offended people. How are they now arguing it is justified that they did this in the first place? This case is designed to draw attention to a small county prosecutor who otherwise likely wouldn't make the news, Sanders says. It has a real cinematic quality to it if you play it as a David versus Goliath scenario. You have big bad Netflix being taken on by the small-time prosecutor who says he's looking out for the best interest of the community. It's outlandish. What is the obsession of the left with defending grooming? You've got in Florida the Parental Rights and Education Bill. The bill prevents, in only one small provision, for the most part, the bill just guarantees parents have a right to know what's happening in their schools. One small section says, for preschool to third grade, you can't talk about identity or orientation. That includes straight. The left has dubbed it Don't Say Gay, and they oppose it. The bill has nothing to do with being gay. The bill would stop you from talking to a kid about traditional marriage. The bill is about saying there's a certain age where we don't think it's appropriate to talk about these things with kids. We've passed that law. Why is the left opposed to that? Why is the modern left so interested in grooming children? Why are they so adamant to defend this film? Why? Why can't the left just be like, we don't care? Listen, is it just because they hate the right? And if the right says this is gross, the left has to come out and defend it? Maybe. I mean, that's a big component of tribalism. Or could it be that the left genuinely likes grooming children? Yeah, I'd say so. That's probably it. It's nasty stuff, man. I'll leave it there. Next segment's coming up at 4 p.m. over at youtube.com/Timcast. Thanks for hanging out, and I'll see you all then.